It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Adam Zilko, the CEO and founder of Firegang Dental Marketing. For 18 years, he's been doing this with 10 years in dentistry. Since starting Firegang, Adam has become an expert in new patient marketing, and now he works exclusively with dental practices. He has written 3 Amazon best-selling dental marketing books called Scaled Firegang to Millions in Annual Revenue, and has helped thousands of dentists across North America attract new patients and grow their practice through cutting-edge marketing strategies. For more than 10 years, they've been passionate about one thing: helping dentists attract new patients and grow their practice. As a company, Firegang exists to help you bridge your new patient gap with a comprehensive, unified dental marketing approach for the most powerful strategies to ensure your practice keep going. They've spent over $1.2 million perfecting the marketing strategies they use to deliver to over 3,000 new patients per month to their clients across the U.S. and Canada. Their comprehensive, personalized approach to dental marketing works. My gosh, I'll tell you what, when I got out of school, I was a rebel and got a free lunch by the head of the Arizona Dental Association because I had a full page ad in the Yellow Pages, and I got a free lunch with this old guy telling me, if you had prostate cancer, would you pick your oncologist out of the Yellow Pages? And then I did something else, which everyone does now, but everyone thought was crazy. I went to a retail center instead of a medical dental building, and I was right next to the grocery store Safeway, and they're like, would you send your kids to a pediatrician that was next to Safeway? And I'm just like, my God. And now the Yellow Pages are dead, and now location, real estate, everybody gets that. So what's going on now? If one of my homies listening to you and saying, you know, I got all these, I get your fixed costs and your variable costs. Your variable costs are costs that go up and down with the number of patients you have. Obviously, if you only see one patient versus 100, you'll have different costs in labor, lab, and supplies. But your fixed costs you pay every month, whether you don't see anybody and you're on vacation or you see 1 million people, rent, mortgage, equipment, bill, like computer, insurance, malpractice, professional dues, blah, 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 blah. So she's listening to you right now. She's commuting to work. And she should be watching on YouTube. You just have like perfect hair and you're just like the face for YouTube. I hope you're listening to me on iTunes. I have the face for iTunes and you have the face for YouTube. And she's sitting there saying, dude, if after I pay all my bills, Adam, if I just had 10 more new patients a month, it would just be gravy train. What would you tell her to do?
Well, I mean, our approach, what we've done is we've studied why some practices absolutely kill and why others don't. And it's almost more like understanding it from a holistic point of view. So what we do is we refer to it as an integrated approach. You know, just a quick fact, but as of 2017, this is the most recent data we have, the ADA said that 42% of dentists in America were flat. And on average, their expenditures went up by $50,000 over that same period of time. So you've got literally almost half the country that's not growing at all, but their costs are going up. And what we find is a lot of dentists are playing marketing roulette. You know, they're listening to noise. They don't really understand what they should be focusing on. And honestly, marketing companies really aren't telling them that. So what we try to do is understand what should the KPIs be? And anyone that really maps out their business should really understand what the key performance indicators are. And that's what we want to help them understand. So when we're understanding or digging into a marketing system, we're approaching it from what's going on the back end and how does that affect everything on the front end. So what we do is we look at what's going on in the office. We actually have software that'll API call into the practice management software to understand what's going on by department. How's hygiene doing versus, another department? How are we scaling that revenue? Then we back it into looking at the phones and the staff, and we back it into what's being said on the site, on the website, or whatever else we're doing. And then we back that into the front end of the model or the funnel, which is, your paid ads and things like that. But when we start with the correct KPIs in mind, then we always know if we're on track or we're not. So some KPIs would be cost per lead and cost per new patient. And that's something that really nobody's telling people they should be looking at. And so because of that, what we find is a lot of times dentists are just tossing up a site because someone says it looks good or it's better. And they're running the same generic ads as everyone else. And this is, and then they're wondering why it's not working. This would be like placing maybe a crown on a rotten tooth with someone with a blood infection or something. Like you've got to diagnose the root issue and then start to fix it as you get to the the beginning of the funnel, if you will. And so while the crown might look great, that doesn't really fix the root issue. And that's what we're trying to do, is understand that what's happening on the back end is also really working well on the front end. So for example, we have, we're dealing with a client right now that's getting a ton of implant leads. They rank, number one for, every type of implant search in their state, their city, everything else, but they're not seeing a lot of new patients from that. What we found is that through the back end, they had new staff that was kind of botching the leads. Their schedule wasn't open the way that it should have been. And because we have our team that's looking at those things on the back end of this funnel, we can then not only go back to the staff and go back to the doctor, but address what we're saying on the front end of the model. So we can change what we're saying on Google, change what we're saying on the ads, and so on. And that's how we're able to really move the needle. If I can improve conversion rates throughout these entire points of conversion, really, what I mean by that is, if I can improve the phones, if I can improve the website conversion rates, if I can improve the ad conversion rates, everything works better. But if there's a break in any of that process, you start to lose people. And that's what we refer to as kind of our integrated approach. And nobody in dental marketing is doing it like this. There's not a single company I've come across that's really trying to diagnose the root issue and then make sure that everything aligns, all the messaging aligns, everything that you go through this entire system, that it's all designed to get that patient through shopping all the way through and in the door and into a paying patient. So when we're digging in and looking at what are the results, we're actually pulling out results based on revenue generated in the practice, because we can actually see it. We can API call right into that practice management software to see that. Does that make sense?
Yes. What's that?
I know I covered a lot there.
Well, no, you're doing great. Before I get back to, I want to go back to these key performance indicators. They're young, they're out of school, they're working at Aspen, they're trying to learn their filling, crown, root canal, basic. And after 3 or 4 years, she's going to open up her own place. What practice management software do you work with? I mean,
most all of them. I mean, the systems that we use, the API are, so we use a software analytics, and it can pull in from, I don't know, about 95% of all the practice management softwares out there. Your Dentrix and EagleSoft, most all of them, really.
Now, would it hurt your business if you picked one? Would you have channel conflict? I mean, would you not win friends and influence people if you said which one that you like the most? Because what we're looking at is the analytics, it's just pulling raw data, and then we see it on our end the same. So it doesn't matter to us what practice management software they're using, because they're using the same codes, they have revenue by department usually broken out, and we can actually pull that in and then tie it back to what we're seeing. It can pull in, patient names and information, things like that, and so then we can align that into the funnel with marketing. But if you gave her a recommendation for a practice management software, do you think one works better for the business of new patients? Well, first of all, if you said that, would you get in trouble from someone?
No, I don't. I've never really looked at. Honestly, I would say whatever works best for them. A lot of practices that we work with, they have the software, but they don't really know they don't know the analytics behind it. They don't really know how to take the data and make it useful. So you've got services or software out there that help you do that, like Practice Intel or Sika or others, and they can actually roll that data in, and then you can actually create benchmarks and goals and look at fee optimization based on that, things like that. And so then that's what we want to see. We don't really care what they're using on their end, but what I would always recommend is whatever they're going to get the most out of that they're comfortable with. But I don't really have a recommendation in terms of the practice management software that they would use themselves.
And when you, who is your, when someone calls you up, you were talking about key performance indicators, and they're, the key performance indicators. I mean, it's practice production, it's collections, it's net income profit, it's percentage of active patients in your computer system that currently have an appointment, it's overhead. It's average production per patient, average production per new patient, case acceptance, number of new patients, patient attrition, and then labor, lab, supplies, would go into overhead. When you talk to a new client, I mean, who's calling you, and do they know their numbers?
Good question. So most of the case, they don't know their numbers. Some do if they're a DE or DSO, or they have multiple locations. We work with a lot of group practices that have multiple locations, and they've got either a CFO or COO or somebody else that we're talking to, or sometimes a CEO. They typically will know their numbers, and it's always a much easier conversation for us because the things that we're looking to do directly align with what they feel should be done. Our challenge is when people don't know their numbers, and so then it's really then it gets back to marketing hype and who's got the biggest shiniest object in the room kind of thing. So that's what we see is most times they don't know their numbers.
And to me, if in your field marketing, I mean, number one, key performance indicators. How many people land on your website per month? They don't know. How many people of those, let's say 100 land on your website, how many of them convert and call your office? They don't know. Of the incoming calls that call your office, how many of them does your receptionist convert to a new patient to come in? They don't know.
Right.
If 100 people came in and they had one cavity, and you told 100 people they each had a cavity, how many of them would convert and get treatment done? They know nothing, yet based on all that nothing, they're doing $780,000 a year, taking home $180,000 a year. What a great job to be completely blind, Stevie Wonder blind, oblivious to anything going on in that funnel. And you're still successful with a 0.4% bankruptcy rate per year when restaurants have a 20 to 40% bankruptcy per year. And when you go into those offices, they're smart. These guys know the difference between geometry and trig. They know the difference between Niels Bohr and Sir Isaac Newton. And if you show them these key performance indicators, like, dude, 100 people land on your website and only 3 convert. They're like, wow, well, let's fix that. So
we take all that off of their plate and we track all of that because it's important for us. And this is a issue that I see with a lot of marketing, agencies, startups, other companies, is that they're not benchmarking it throughout the whole process. We're looking at, again, by receptionist or agent, what their conversion rates are on the phones. And then again, if we have a lot of KPIs internally, what we're trying to do is simplify it out. And really the most important KPI would be cost per new patient, right? What are we paying from marketing is a cost per new patient, right? And then we can extrapolate out what type of patient that is, what are they worth, and so on. But as long as we're in alignment there, that's always kind of our North Star. Then we can break that back into cost per lead.
Well, so wait. You're too fast for me. Remember, I'm old and senile. So you said the main was cost per new patient?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's what you want to see.
And are you just calling it cost per new patient, or you call it patient acquisition? What do you think is the formal, just cost per new patient, or patient acquisition cost?
Yeah, it's a similar. Basically, it could be called the same thing. We just refer to it as a cost per new patient, but it is a patient acquisition cost. And then really, what we want to try to do is understand. Through the use of actual software, what are the actual end results from the practice, like from dollars and cents paid? So what I mean is, like, for example, a lot of marketing that I see is like, we're going to send you all these leads, but they don't actually validate those leads. So they'll say, well, you got, 50 leads this month, but nobody's listening to those leads. Nobody's validating those leads to see if they're actually real new patient leads. So a lead could be somebody who's calling because they had the wrong number. Somebody's calling to sell the office something. Somebody is not really looking. They don't have the right insurance, or they don't, they're not really serious about services, or whatever it might be. What we do is we try to validate that. So we actually listen to the calls. We validate what actually are validated leads, and then that becomes.
So you're listening to the calls.
We are, absolutely.
Okay, what does this program cost? I mean, when you're paying people to listen to people talk, what does this program cost?
Well, we sell a full integrated system. We have a couple of programs for that. And so, they might start anywhere from 2,500. We've got clients that are, north of 15,000. But most aren't. Most are in the lower into that 25, 35, 4,500 per location. If they're, a DSO or a group
it runs from what range? From what to what?
About 2,500 or so, give or take a month. Yeah. And then on up.
So you sell a full integrative marketing package for around $2,500 a month. That's what people are getting in at.
Usually, yeah. Then they'll have some ad costs on top of that, and that'll give them.
Oh, okay. So that's the consulting cost. That's not the ad spend.
Yeah. Usually, we start with about $1,000 a month or so on paid ads. 100% of that money goes direct to those ad sources. So, Howard, you call me up, say, hey, I want you to run my ads as part of this program. We're going to say we'll spend X. Let's say hypothetically it's $1,000. We don't mark that money up. 100% of that money goes right to Google. The reason we do that is it's completely transparent, and we're going to show that with the client. So I've seen some agencies take as high as like 65% of that money, or a lot of times it's just bundled in. With us, it's just going to be fully transparent. So some of that money might go to Google, it might go to Facebook. We might spend it on Yelp. We may spend it on Instagram.
And that fully integrated package, what are you going to measure? Are you going to measure their incoming phone calls?
Everything. Absolutely. So
what's everything?
So end to end, we're doing ads on the front end, managing their basically online profile, where they show up. And here's a big thing, Howard. Most times when we look at marketing, there's a lack of front end differentiation and then middle differentiation and back differentiation. So what do I mean by that? And I'll get back to answering your question here, but when people market their practices, they're saying things like, we treat our patients like family, or we offer top-notch dental care, or we have professional staff, a warm and caring environment. Every dentist in America could say that. So what we're looking to do is we're looking at how do we market someone on the front end that differentiates them within their market, right? And so we're going to market that through numerous channels. We're then going to send them into either a funnel, which we probably won't have time to get into, but we've been getting into a lot of advanced marketing funnels for implants, things like that. Otherwise, we're going to send them to a website. The website's designed to align with that messaging, right? Which a lot of times falls off. So someone runs an ad on Google with an offer or something. It usually doesn't mirror that on the website. We're going to track that. We're going to make sure the website's designed to optimize as high as it can. We split test this. So what we do is we take traffic from one website and then send it to a variation. So, for example, let's say you send out 2 emails and you're testing one versus the other to see which is better. We do that with our websites to figure out how we get the best conversion rates possible. And then on the back end, we're looking at how are the phones being handled. So we're listening to all the marketing-related phone calls. We listened to over 65,000 marketing-related phone calls last year. So I have a team of people that are listening to those calls, marking down what's going on. And then on the back end further, but beyond that, we've got client success managers that are then going and looking at the data and working with the staff, and also reading the software, the analytics, to understand what happened on the back end. So they're able to tell, okay, did Jenny at the front desk convert? Yes or no, and why? Did that patient turn into a new, or that lead turn into a new patient? What were they worth and why? And then how does all of these things on the back end, how are they affecting what we're doing on the front end? For example, as I said earlier, we have a client that's struggling to close implant leads. And if we weren't doing all this stuff on the back end, we didn't have this integrated approach, we would think that the ads on the front end or the marketing on the front end for implants was ineffective. It turns out it's quite the opposite. They just were burning through leads, and then they didn't know how to close them on the back end because they didn't have openings in their spot. They're booking 5 to 6 weeks out, and they didn't really realize that. They didn't realize that the staff is telling people they couldn't get them in for 6 weeks and then referring them out instead of finding another solution. So we're the ones that actually coming back to the doctor and say, hey, listen, this is what we're finding, and we need to either stop running the ads, or we need to adjust our messaging, or we need to get more manpower in the office, or coach up the staff. And we do staff coaching on the phones, things like that. And so that's just one example. What we do that with all aspects. It could be for any type of services. And so, Howard, if we start with understanding what we're paying, our client acquisition cost or cost per new patient, if that's low enough, we know that everything else is being handled appropriately, right? But if the cost per lead is really low, but the cost per new patient is really high, that means typically there's a conversion rate issue. So to step back from what you were saying, we do everything from the front end when someone starts their search on Google. What are we saying? How are we advertising? with their online reputation. We actually have software that'll help them get more reviews on kind of like on autopilot on Google and Yelp and Facebook. So what do they look like on that end? And then to the website, how does that convert at the best rate possible? How does the messaging align? How are we differentiating them in the marketplace? And then we're looking at what's going on with the phones, listening to all the calls, breaking down the KPIs, breaking down the conversion rates. And then we're looking at the back end to understand what actually happened with basically money. What happened with the revenue? Did those patients come in? Did they pay the money? Or do we have an issue with case acceptance? And do they need some training, things like that? So then it's tying it all together. And if you piecemeal this out, which we see all the time, you've got one company that's listening to calls. You got another company that's maybe doing some coaching, another company that's running a website and maybe some ads. Well, again, if there's a break in this process, you don't have them all talking together, and that's when you start to lose people through this funnel. And that's really where we see the acquisition cost considerably climb, because you could be running great ads or poor ads on the front end, but nobody's seeing what's going on in the back end and tying that all together. And that's really where you want to integrate these together. And that's how you get effective marketing.
And I really like your integrated approach, because I always told people the one business I would never get into is marketing, helping dental offices market. The business you went into, there's no way I'd do it, because when a consumer buys an iPhone, they know the difference in an Android. They know the difference in a BMW and a Chevy. Yeah. But my homies, I love them because I love the fact that they love their art. They want to do surgery all day, and they love dentistry, but they don't ever know their numbers. And so you could do world-class marketing, and they don't know that it increased the number of people landing on their website. It increased the number of website conversions, called your front desk, and your front desk answered every phone. Can you please hold? And then they just fell off. I mean, we look at what do they call that on websites? The latency period. The latency period. Yeah, what's it called?
Are you referring to bounce rate?
Latency period mean they're on social media. They click a web link. If it doesn't load in like 3 seconds, they're gone. Yeah. And so latency is probably the biggest variable that machine learning, artificial intelligence has found on internet. And they're like, oh my God, these Homo sapiens, they got two seconds of patience, and if it doesn't load, they're gone. And then they call your office, and every date I've seen, 25% go to voicemail, and then another half go to, can you please hold? And then they're going to blame it on you. Well, I gave Firegang $1,000, nothing happened. Yeah, because you're incompetent and you're understaffed to the front. In every business in America, the most important person is who's incoming calls and who's their salesman outgoing calls. And those are the people in 3-piece suits, a tie, and make $100,000 a year. The guy in the back making the machine shop, which is the dentist, in overalls and a lunch pail, that's not the key guy. And these guys all treat the incoming calls as chaos. So if I called you up and I said, okay, I want this fully integrated package, how are you going to measure my number of people landing on my website, converting to calling? And if 100 people called, does my girl Shirley convert how many to come in? How do you explain that to my homies? Because they clearly don't get it.
Right. So we have tracking that allows us to do that. We have tracking that allows us to tell where the phone calls are coming from, what generated them. We're able to tie all that together through systems that we've created. And then there's a manual approach to listening to the calls. We have people do that because I've used every sort of AI system, Amazon's, everyone, for listening to calls and trying to understand what happened, and it's still not the same. And then it's real people that are trained to look at these things, going in, that know the numbers, that know the things that these doctors probably don't know or haven't been taught, or their marketing companies never looked at, right? And that's what they're looking at. I found that I can't expect them to do that. So if I'm going to create a better marketing system for them, I have to be the one that knows these better than them. And then we get on a call with them every month and say, listen, here's the facts. Here's what we're seeing. Here's the numbers. Here's where we're working well. Here's what's not what's working well. And here's how we improve that. Most times when we talk to doctors, they're like, well, I got to tell my marketing person what to do. Not with us. We're going to be saying, listen, here's what you need to do. And here's the steps. And here's why. And it's usually data driven. But we have software that tracks, or we have people that track. And so there's really my goal years ago was, how do I understand every single step that someone takes when they start looking for a dentist, all the way through paying that money, and then even through patient reactivation. We've got software that allows for that. So how do we then figure out, okay, what are we paying for those new patients? What's that worth to the practice, and where's that ROI at? And then being able to, arbitrarily or not arbitrarily, but break it down in a way that is, there's no room for subjectivity in it. It's black and white.
So, again, I'm trying to, my whole deal was in 1998 that with the internet, no dentist should ever have to practice solo again. She's driving to work, and like all Americans, she's the only one in the car, and she's wondering if she's a fit for you. I mean, so tell her, who's the average homie calling you? What they young, they old, they rural, they urban? Why are they calling you, and why do you have several? How many clients do you have?
Hundreds.
So why? Because she's wondering, am I part of this tribe or am I different? Because I always say when I lecture, hey, anybody have any questions? No. Okay, well, let's take a 10-minute break. And then everybody runs up with this unique question that they know is so unique that I've only heard it like 80 million trillion times.
Sure. We work, every type of practice. The practices that I would say we wouldn't want to work with are those that want to hire someone, pass it to the front desk and not be a part of it, and don't really want to partner with the company. They fail. They go through marketing company after marketing company. They're not going to be any different with us because they don't have the desire to change, potentially in-house. Aside from that, we recently signed up a client that is in a rural area of Oregon, in a small little town that has 3 other dentists. Just so small. On the flip side, we've got, like I said, DSOs and massively scaled out group practices, and then really anything in between. We've got practices that are doing, upwards of 8 million out of a single location, all the way down to, they're doing 750 to $1 million plus. And so it's everything in between. We do find that most times practices typically won't move forward with us that are, under about 750 because of the fear of cost element. I think they haven't spent the money to market themselves, or, especially if they're in like the $300, $400, $500 range. They really never advertised, and it's a scary thing. And so, that comes down to mindset. But aside from that, if someone's really interested in partnering with a company that knows what they're doing and growing their practice, we'll work with about anyone that makes sense to.
So you, the first thing he said, if that flew over your head, because I know you're a quarter of my homies are still in dental kindergarten school, they haven't even graduated yet, he said when he works with a company where the dentist just says, I'm not dealing with this, and he throws it to the front desk, they just burn insurance because a fish rots from the head down. Right. And the dentist owner as CEO is the root cause of dental offices failing, any organization failing. I don't care if it's an organization or a country. You get the wrong president of a country and things can go south really, really quickly all through history. So if you do not want to be the CEO, well, don't torture your staff. Go get a job and work for someone. But if you're going to own your own business, you own all these problems. And yeah, it looks easy the way I do it because I've been doing it 32 years and I got a half dozen people that have been with me 2 decades. Yeah. So my fish head has already been transferred over to a management team where if I pass away, it doesn't matter the culture, the vision, it'll just keep going. Right. But it took me 12 years to get these people that have been with me all these times. So you have to own every single problem, and it's a lot of work. And a lot of dentists want to do everything in-house, and then they realize there's not enough time to do everything in-house. Right. So you're looking for clients that want to partner with you, or the dentist's CEO says, okay, I want to understand, and I call it the funnel. So will you go back to the funnel, have how you see the funnel and how you can fix that?
Yeah, the funnel starts with, I believe it starts largely in part by market differentiation. Dentistry is becoming incredibly commoditized today, right? Everyone and their brother is a dentist. You've got a dentist on 1 million corners. How do you separate yourself from the next 30 guys down the street? So that's the first thing to think about. And I kind of talked about that. If you're advertising that you're accepting new patients, or that or have a professional staff, basically, if I put 100 dentists in a room and I said, raise your hand if you say that you treat patients like family, and raise your hand if you offer top-notch dental care, and raise your hand if you have a warm and caring environment, right? And everyone puts their hand up, then you shouldn't be advertising that. You want to know, you want to figure out what makes you unique. Map out your avatar. If you grab our book, we'll tell you how to do that, and figure out how to basically distinguish or differentiate yourself. So that's at the very beginning of the funnel, and that's done through ads. It's done through optimization, how you show up, things like that. Then we drive, and it's also done through your reputation, having a strong reputation. We advise that you should have 2x the amount of reviews as the next guy. You look at how people shop on Amazon. And these aren't just reviews on some private site like Ratabiz. These are on Google.
Okay, Google. But the first part of the funnel was what?
Market differentiation.
Okay, market differentiation. And I just want to share a couple thoughts on that.
Yeah.
When I go out in town and I drink with my friends, I know what they're passionate about. And while you're talking to them, you Google their website and say, dude, you're like an implantologist on a national level. I go to your website, I don't even know it. I don't even see one single one of your cases. So you're saying market differentiation, which they just they need to look at it from fresh eyes. And then number two.
So part of that. So number two would be consistency. Well, part of that is the online reputation too. So some of it is what you say. The other part of that is social proof. But it needs to be visible where people are shopping. What I mean is, and I think everyone kind of knows this now, but it hasn't always been that way. But, if you're buying a product on Amazon, well, it can have the most amount of reviews of any of the products elsewhere online. But if they're not on Amazon, it doesn't matter. So same with Google, same with Facebook, same with Yelp, whatever. If you're driving traffic through Google, that you should have the most amount of reviews. And that's something that we work with our practices to get. So there's social proof and there's market differentiation. The next part of this is consistency in messaging. So I see this all the time. Someone will run an ad, you get to their website. Let's say they're running a promotion. I looked at one 2 days ago for an ortho group that's running a promotion for a new Sonicare toothbrush. You mention the ad, you get that. You go to the website, it's nowhere to be mentioned, right? And we see this with all sorts of things, new patient specials or anything else that you can advertise. You see an ad for it, you go to the website, it's missing. You see an ad for what makes them different. Let's say they're open Saturdays and or they're open nights and weekends, but you go to the website, it doesn't really reflect that, right? It doesn't just call out front and center. Social proof is not called out front and center. It's not above the fold, meaning before you scroll down the page, what testimonials are you showcasing? What unique differentiator are you showcasing? So that consistency in messaging has to be out throughout that process. And that has to actually transcend all the way through the staff. So when someone's calling in asking about offers or promotions or, hey, I'm a new patient, do they know what promotions are being run? Do they know what messaging is set on the site and set in the ads? And are they validating that or reinforcing that or bringing it to their attention? So all of that throughout the process, that has to stay consistent. And then the site needs to be built to convert. And so you kind of hit about latency. We build sites that are mobile first. We build sites that are designed to convert because we've tested them. We've split test countless websites and spent tremendous amounts of money sending half of the traffic to one website and then half of the traffic to a different variation of that same website in real time to see which one performs better, which one gets more phone calls, which one gets more clicks to book an appointment. So we split test our websites and then we use that data to build better websites. And then at that point, we then integrate the call tracking, coaching, and all that. And then on the back end, we do all the back end strategy, some level of consulting, pulling data from the practice management software, and everything we learn out of that, and out of hearing what's going on the phone calls, we reapply that back to the front end of the funnel, and we rinse and repeat basically. So if we're running a promotion or something's different, a differentiator that's not effective, we're looking at why or why not. How do we need to change that? We're listening and looking for those things.
So do you sell a dashboard for all this marketing data? I mean, do you have a dashboard or do you work with?
We built an internal system for a dashboard. We don't sell.
Do you recommend any dashboards? I mean, if someone called you up, because there's a lot of dental dashboard companies,
Sure.
do you like them? Do they help you? Do you not use them? If someone had a dental dashboard, um, would you
Well, the back end systems that we use to API call into their practice management software, we'll use some of those. So some that we would recommend would be like Dental Intel or Sika or things like that. And so we'll leverage those in some capacity. But in terms of understanding like what's going on through the whole funnel, we've created our own system and all these data points, because those dashboards won't tell you, that Jenny's converting at 38% of the phones, whereas Tammy is at 76% of the phones. And here's how it's trending month over month. And here's, what types of leads the site is, these callers are, things like that. So we've created all that in-house.
So what are the main dental dashboards out there? You said Sika. What are some other
Sika, Practice Intel. Those are the big ones that I'm aware of in terms of like third-party systems that you could go out and pick up. I'm not familiar with any others off the top. I know there's a couple, but I can't remember their names.
But you feel like you are you had to go out and make your own.
For what we're doing, yes.
Yeah.
But in terms of pulling just pure analytics out of the practice management software, those systems will do very well. They'll give practice a lot of insights that they probably would not have otherwise had. They have to use them. It's not enough to just buy it. You've got to actually set it up, use it, create goals within them or benchmarks within them, and then you actually use the system.
Right on. Okay, so then what? So you're talking about that a fish rots from the head down. The dentist, the CEO, has got to get involved. First, you got to market differentiation, so you can have your increase online reputation for your social proof. Be consistent with your message, your mobile website, then call tracking, and then pulling numbers from practice management software and dental dashboards. What are you tracking on the dental dashboards? And are you sharing this with your clients?
We are. Yep. So we're tracking really what's going on revenue wise, and if we're seeing an issue somewhere else, for example, let's say that their fees are either crazy low or crazy high, they're out of the norm. Some of these systems will allow us to optimize our fee schedules based on what others in the market are doing. So there's other things that we can look at. Some of it is dependent upon what we're finding within that, but most of what we're sharing back to the practices, the cost per new patient as it pertains to the marketing, and then how that's trending.
Okay. So then, when here's what I already know what's happening. Their website doesn't have any calling things. It just it's just this website about all this stuff. It never says call here if you have this problem. Here's work I've done. It's not built for conversion. If
Right.
that's the problem, do you redo their website? Do you
Absolutely.
But do you do that yourself, or does someone else do it for you, or
No, we do those in house.
so you have your own programmers?
Yeah, oh yeah. So we build all that. So I've got a team of people that runs ads. I've got people that work with online optimization. I've got people that build the websites and design them. I've got people that listen to calls. I've got people that work with the practice on the on all of this. So we assign them a client success manager that's going to get on calls with them to work with them on what they're seeing and how to improve and provide strategy or whatever is needed. And then I've got all the support behind the scenes for all of those departments.
That is go ahead.
Yeah. So to answer your question, yeah, we build the sites, we test the sites. They're created in-house. We've got a framework that we know works, and then we model off of that as a starting point. One of the things I see is a lot of practice owners, they want what they consider as a pretty website, but that doesn't mean that it's based around data. So you may have what you think subjectively is the prettiest website, but it doesn't convert well. And
Right.
You wouldn't know that unless you've done the testing. So we've done that testing, and we know what works well. We know what to say. We know how to say it because we've done thousands of sites. We operate in over 150 plus markets. We know what's working, what's not, and so we then at scale can say, okay, this is what we want to lead with as our framework and model from, and then we can customize it to a degree for the practice. What's unique about them? What are their differentiators? We'll work with them on that.
Well, I'm proud of you because you're in Spokane, Washington. And, I've had Dental Town for since 98, and it's hard to find programmers. And I got 4 million people in the Valley. So congrats on being a little old Spokane with 215,000 people, and you got programmers. So how did you do?
We're a distributed team. So I live here, but my entire team, they all work remote, every single person. So basically I've got developers in Florida. I've got developers, all over. I've got staff all over. I've got people that I have a couple of employees that are in Spokane, but I've got people on Oregon and like I said, Florida and Texas and, laundry list of places.
Well, so, I know you're doing good. I mean, hell, just on LinkedIn, you got 30 employees just on LinkedIn. So that alone, I know you're crushing it. So when your homie comes in and the website looks bad, you guys will fix that. Right. Then you start recording their calls. And what software do you use for that? Is that through their internet?
Use CallRail. Yeah. I mean, any VoIP system will work. We just happen to work with that. We're testing some new softwares though. We're always testing to see if we can find a better platform, but so far they've served us well for a lot of years. So that's what we use as a backbone, and that can integrate into everything, and they have APIs for everything we need for that.
Okay, tell them about CallRail. How does that work? You set them up with CallRail, and then what? That's gonna track.
So the way it works. Yeah, so the way it works is we can set up dynamic call insertion, which means that if let's say we are driving traffic from a Facebook ad, we can set that ad up to trigger the phone number to be dynamically swapped out on the website. That means that when someone clicks on a Facebook ad, they get a different phone number when that website loads. And when they call that number, it rings right to the staff, right to the office. We're able then to intercept that, record it, and hear what's going on. We can do that for all types of sources. We can do that for Google, organic, any type of advertising. We can help give them these, do this for their own, if they're doing direct mail or something like that, we can give them numbers for that too.
Yeah, I had lunch with an attorney who's on the back of the phone book. He's on all the billboards and he's on TV, and he's always talking about the same 1-800 number. And I've been listening to him for 30 years. I'm like, dude, how do you know if they called from any of these three things? I mean, even 1-800 dentist had to completely redo everything because that's not how it works on a smartphone. That's how it worked on a dial-up phone. Okay, so then you set up the call track. So then what? So how many of these calls you listen to? Or do you listen to them all, then speed listen to some, or how does that work?
We filter out marketing. We try to identify if we can. So these numbers are designed to only show from marketing related activities. So that means that if someone goes to your website by typing in your website address directly, we assume they already know who you are, and it won't trigger the number. And so, people can still false trigger it if they Google a practice and, whatever, then they might. But we try to quickly identify those. But last year, as it just pertains to the marketing specific calls, we listened to over 65,000 of those.
Holy so a lot of calls. Moly. And what do you think when you start working with a dental? I hate to say when you start working with a dental office because that's a selected bunch of people that want to get help. I mean, we know, and I've told them 1,000 times on the show that every dentist that works with practice management consultants, they average about $1.2 million in collections and take home $250 plus to $350. But the average dentist, who's smarter than all the consultants, they're doing about $780, taking home $178, $180. So I don't want to know the numbers of the people that call you because that's a separate breed of cat. But that's the only thing you have data on. So when you start working with a new client, what is their incoming call conversion rate, and what can you move it to? And is that with training? Is that phone call? What metrics are you finding on the incoming call conversion rates? Well, first of all, what metrics are you finding from the website conversion rate? If 100 people land on an average dental office website, how many of them convert?
So that'll be determined based on the offers running at the market and then the type of practice. If we're dealing with like a pediatric practice, those are always much higher than we're dealing with like a fee for service or cosmetic. So some of that's kind of difficult to break down per se for that. And then it's also based on a few other elements that I won't get too in depth in here. But in terms of the calls, what we're seeing typically is on average, you see about a 50%, 40 to 50% conversion rates. Let's see, from people that are calling in to actually making it through, and then about half of those actually converted into new patients. Kind of the numbers that you alluded to earlier, 25 and 50%. And so that's typically what we see. We train as part of our system. We'll actually coach practices and scale them up. Some come in that have had training in the past, but that's a loaded thing too. If someone's had training in the past, but they're not staying on top of it, the staff typically will revert back to whatever's easiest, and their call conversion rates will drop. However, if they're constantly being worked with over time, those numbers will stay high. So we've taken practices from 30, 40% and helped get them well north of 75 and 80% conversion rates on the phones for patient leads coming through. And that's through coaching, but it has to be done over time. It's not like you do it a couple months, you stop it and hope that they're going to fix themselves and stay good, stay on it.
And when you talked about, pediatric dentists have the highest conversion rate, never, ever forget the fact that, when your product, it is going to, the number one goal of a species is to reproduce and have offspring. And you see that always in dentistry. You see that the pediatric dentists have like you just said, the highest conversion rate, that's a big deal. Then you see orthodontists. There's 10,800 orthodontists. Hell, I own Orthotown. Orthos is huge. But then the dentist, they go focus on restoring the worn dentition on some 78-year-old man with liver spots. And then they're shocked that guy doesn't want to spend. A 70-year-old man knows that at best he's just fertilizer for next year's wheat crop. And he's not going to spend $7,000 while he's got a grandchild that might need the money and grow up and go to college someday. So dentists are always focusing on TMJ, occlusion, warning the restoring dentition on people with liver spots. Dude, if they have a liver spot, that's not the market. The market is I mean, come on. I don't care if you're an ant or a scorpion or a cockroach. Your whole drive is to replace yourself when you pass on. So again, if you're in dental school and you see how that, if you specialize, the average specialist in dentistry is going to net 100,000 more. We'll go into pediatric dentistry and ortho and geriatric dentistry. It's not going to be a thing for a long time because there's no money in it, because the geriatrics, I mean, why are you going to give grandma $1 million heart, lung, and liver transplant when she's 1 million years old, when her kid can't get a $5,000 grant to go to school? So you have to, biology matters if you're an ant or a butterfly. I mean, it's just straight out biology. So then what's next? So then you're going to try to increase the, if I spend money with you and you redo my website, increase the conversion to the front, you record those calls, which just recording them changes everything. I mean, right. We've learned this in retail where the minute you put a camera above the cash register, they quit stealing. Yeah, they're humans. They're not stupid. They were game theory. As soon as their mind says, well, no one's going to see me do this, the minute you start recording the phone calls, all you have to do is that. You probably don't even have to do. That's probably 80% of it. 80% of it is, we're with Adam and Zilko of Firegang, and so we're going to record all your calls, and they're going to listen to them all, and they're going to go after it once a month. You don't even have to do anything. At that point, they raise their game.
Yeah, I mean, we looked at the data years ago, and we have it written out and we share it with our practices, but I think it's like 97% of all calls that come into the practice are like one of four types of callers. One, for example, would be like price shopper. And again, I don't have them all in front of me, but the point is that when you understand that you can bracket individuals calling in into like one of four groups, and then you are given scripts and strategy on how to convert those, and think about how you're dealing with those leads, things change when you realize like that staff shouldn't be trying to treat people on the phones, that they should be pushing for an appointment so that person will come in and the doctor can then provide, or prescribe treatment in person. That changes the game. There's a lot of other things that we do, but again, we've listened to so many calls over the years. We know what works, and then, you know, if you've got someone new, or you've got someone that hasn't been trained in a long time, or what have you, you know, as long as they're receptive, and this gets back to that partnership, as long as the doctor partners with us in this to get that person on track, to get them trained up, that'll hold them accountable because they work for the doctor, they don't work for us. We will scale them up. If they follow our system on how to answer the phones and convert those leads, they will convert at a much higher rate, significantly so. And it doesn't cost the practice any more money to do this other than what they would pay to us. They just have to execute. The problem, again, is either they don't want to spend the money because they don't think there's an issue. We've got the data to prove that there is, or they'll hire us, but they won't hold people accountable because that's just, you know, they're afraid to, for whatever reason. They don't want to partner up after doing that. It's usually falling into one of those two things that we see.
So when we look at the phone calls, I'm seeing 5. So you have the new patient emergency caller, the new patient recare caller, that's someone who doesn't need a root canal, they're not in pain, but they moved and they need a new cleaning, the shopper call, then the patient canceling an appointment, and then the financial or clinical question. So let's start with the new patient emergency. Oh my God, Adam, my tooth is killing me. I need to see Dr. Farran. Any critiques you want to add to that, or is that?
Yeah, so we have you know, got scripts for this, but basically you want to engage a patient, you want to get their information, get their name, get their number, so that if you need to call them back, you can. And really push to get them booked, because you shouldn't treat them on the phone. I've heard people call in for implants and they're trying to quote prices over the phone when, how could you know? How could you know what it's going to cost? So, you know, the goal is really connect with them, build rapport, and get them in the door. And it's not hard, and you want to keep that call time down. Make it quick, make it easy, and understand what your directive is. Your directive from the front staff perspective is to schedule that appointment. Whatever you need to do, get them in the door, get them scheduled. If you're running a promotion for emergencies, lead with it if you have to. Get them converted and get that person in the door. Get them off the market. Stop them from shopping. You know, you don't want them to be calling the next 5 practices, because someone's going to get them. Someone's been trained and knows how to do this and is going to get them in. So you might as well be that person, because you paid the money to get them to call you in the first place.
Nice. Very well done. And then any tips on when you just get that call where they just want to cancel it? From all the phone calls you listen to 60,000 a month, when someone calls up and says they're going to cancel, is that pretty much a done deal? I mean, is talking them out of that usually, can that be done, or is that not really?
It can be. I guess it would depend on what the reason is, and have they been, are they an existing patient or a new patient? What's happened? You know, if you find that people are canceling as well, you know, there's a lot that can be learned from that. So is it because they're booked too far out, and you know, they want to see somebody sooner, and you're seeing the history of that? Well, that's something that we'd want to know from a marketing perspective, because that changes what we do. And a lot of times practices won't know that. They'll just see openings in their schedule and not realize why. We're trying to understand why those things are happening, so that we can advise the practice on what they need to do next. Either give more support in the office, like we're working with on someone that's doing implants, or, you know, find another solution if they, or we need to basically address our marketing or whatever else it is. So it'd be subjective to, I think, what the reasoning is behind why they're canceling, and if this is a pattern. But yeah, people can be talked out of it if there's something that's going on. It just would be somewhat specific or dependent upon what that reason was.
Okay. So, so then what would be next on that list? I'm trying to, we talked about, what's working, integrated approach. You say the 2-part formula to dental practice success: action versus execution. That's the head rods. Go ahead.
Yeah. So success typically in anything is action times execution, right? So whatever activity you're taking, how well you execute that, then that's success. So 100% success is 100% action times 100% execution. So what we look at Firegang is our action is us building out this proven integrated marketing system, right? We know that thing works because we've replicated success in it in market after market after market, large and small. The variable in the room is the execution part, meaning how well does that practice execute? Now, we help support them in that, but we can't do it all for them. I can't answer their phones. I can't improve their case acceptance by sitting there and dealing with that. I can't provide a higher level of service to keep people to come back or keep them coming back to reduce that churn rate, right? I can't make sure that they get on calls with me. I can't make sure that their staff's happy, all these other things, but I can help support them in that. So the part that we have that we know is that our action is 100% effective. I know it for a fact because I've done it a million times. The variable is the execution. So the clients that work with us that execute really well, that become our partners, we speak a lot about this, that partner with us, that follow our advice, just like hiring a coach, right? You hire a business coach. If you follow their advice, you're probably going to do better than if you don't. So we have people that hire us. They don't follow the advice. They don't get on calls. We pass to the staff, and they struggle. They lack execution. That's then where that success will struggle. The better the execution is, and again, we'll support that, then the better likelihood of success. And so that's really what we mean by that. And again, it's no different than if you hire a business coach or a consultant or a financial advisor or whatever it is. You don't heed their advice and execute on it, you're going to struggle. But yet it still happens.
So then the next problem with all this, I mean, to me, it's overhead is so simple. I mean, if your costs are $1 a month and your collections are $1 a month, you have 100% overhead.
Right.
The dentist tries to say, oh my God, my costs are $1 a month. So he tries to change the cost of electricity and the market for hygienists. He says, well, everybody's paying their hygienist $40 an hour. Let me just pay mine $35. Okay, so now you don't have a hygienist. You can't fight the free market. So all these prices in the cost of people, the difference in costs in San Francisco is different than Kansas. So you pay all your costs and it ends up, okay, I'm a frugal dentist and it costs me $1 a month. And what's your goal? Well, I want 50% overhead. Okay, so now we got to collect $2 a month. So where do we go from there? So the first thing is always the collection policy. You get $1 for the dentistry, but they're going to slowly pay you, and they don't pay you for 3 months, so you go bankrupt waiting for $3. The other thing is the treatment plan presentation. And I know my homies and love them are, they're so challenging. They say, dude, I hate sales. So they give you money. You do your job. You fix their website, increase their conversion. You do everything. And now you give them more new patients, and they couldn't sell an Eskimo a heater. I mean, so what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do there?
Part of it is understanding if you get somebody in the door, just get them in the door. That's probably most of the battle there. When you start getting into higher end services like implants and cosmetic related services, we partner with companies, or we have some training internally, or work with coaches on that and case acceptance on that. I won't get too into depth on that on this call, but for most services, as long as you get them in the door and you treat people well, you've done a lot of that. That would be the biggest thing. But getting back to it, I mean, and here's just a quick stat. We did it all up. I mean, we do this all the time, but as of last month, all up, our average with brand new clients that weren't executing, plus clients that did execute well, on average, for every $1 one of Firegang's clients spends with us and advertising, they're seeing 9.56 cents, $9.56 back in their pocket. That's a 956x return on their money. So that is a fact. That's the number as of last month. For every $1 they're spending with us, they're seeing almost 10 in return, or 9.5 in return. That is a very good return. And so that's all. In practices that execute well, I mean, you should see some other numbers. They're crazy good. Paying less than $30 a lead and less than $50 a new patient in the door paying. Knowing what a first year value, lifetime value is of those patients, the ROI is stupid good. It's really, really good.
So I can't believe we did an hour. Give your best sales pitch of why my homie should call you right now. I mean,
it's right there. I mean, our ROI, our ROI is amazing. We have the most comprehensive marketing system out there that I've seen, that I know about. We're the only ones that are working as an integrated approach all the way from the back into the front. Most people, again, I use this analogy, I don't know how well this resonates, but they'll put up a random website and throw some ads at it and hope for the best. It's like putting a crown on what potentially could be a rotten tooth, right? You need to fix the root cause holistically. If someone's got an infection, you got to fix that first. We're looking to tie all of that together because we know that the better we can do on the back end, the better we can do on the front end, and they all work together. So, these doctors, they got to stop playing marketing roulette. They got to start understanding their numbers. And if their marketing company isn't giving them their KPIs and breaking it down for them, that's a red flag. But truth be told, a lot of these marketing companies, they don't know those numbers either. They're just saying, hey, I sent you all these leads and good luck. But what does that really mean?
And to wrap this all up, I mean, when I got out of school in '87, dentistry was a cottage industry. A cottage industry means that nobody has 1% of the market. And right now there's 150,000 dental offices, and to have 1%, Heartland would have to have 1,500, and they don't have 1,500. They haven't even hit 1,000 yet, but dentistry is slowly starting to mature. And at the end of the day, it's never going to be it's never going to be a commodity, because a commodity is Coke, chocolate, and my iPhone. Not somebody touching me and getting into my body and doing a root canal. That is a totally different ball game. And people always say, well, look what happened to Walgreens. Yeah, Walgreens, they hand you a bottle of pills. And I've been in France where you take your prescription on your smart card, you stick in an ATM machine, and a bottle comes down and hoppers. I don't need a pharmacist to hand me 28 tabs of penicillin. But who I'm going to let touch me and give me a vasectomy, that is extremely different behavior. But we have these DSOs at they're about 12% of the dentists, but Stan Bergman of Shine says they're buying about 18% of the supplies. So it's almost 20%, and that it could be a tipping point. But what those guys are doing better is the business of dentistry. They know their numbers. They just know their numbers. You don't have to predict.
And the mindset.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's a whole different animal. We work so much better with those guys. We're trying to help the others, but man, those guys, they get it. And it's just so much easier.
Yeah. And I mean, and when Clearfield came to town, I didn't sit there and join the bitching committee with all the other periodontal oral surgeons about the skies falling and what's happening. I'm just like, dude, will you just shut up and look what they're doing? They're doing it in one appointment. They got an in-house lab. They're mixing a surgeon with a prosthodontist and just look at what they're doing. I mean, they're doing 20,000 full arches a year at 25,000 a pop, and you're doing 2 a year. And your answer is to start moaning and complaining. I mean, obviously America's happy. The people have got to be loving it because they're flocking in.
It's better. Like, I mean, I always refer to it as like how they're kind of like the Best Buy of dentistry. It's just creating a better patient experience. They're open on Fridays, they're open after hours, they're open weekends, they have promotions, they can get you in and out. I get that some practices have better service and they're doing it better because they're more committed or whatever, right? You've seen issues with DSOs and customer service related stuff. They're going to fix that, and some of them already have. And you're starting to see that as they put more effort there, that'll shift. And so either you catch up and you innovate and realize this is what people want, or they're going to continue to push them out. And that's what's going to happen.
So how do they contact you?
Go to firegang.com. They can sign up for a free marketing assessment if they want to chat with either myself or someone on my team. We can chat with them on what's going on, or they just go to firegang.com, and it's firegang.com. They can grab a free copy of our book. I believe we still got it up for a limited time there. So they can grab a copy there. Then if they want to chat, just fill that out.
And if you're listening to this podcast, you like audiobooks, I mean, just go to Amazon, type in Adam Zilko, Zilko, Grow Your Practice Online, Proven Strategies to Attract and Convert New Patients. It's an amazing book. Every one of their reviews is 5-star. So it's on audiobook. You can read it, listen to it. But Adam, thank you so much for coming on the show today and talking to my homies for all things dental marketing. All right, awesome. I'll see you on the board. See you on the message boards.